Hi there, Nathan Patrick Taylor here. One of the newest additions to Power BI is the Mapbox visual added to the marketplace. In this demo, I wanted to take you through some of the hints and tips that I have while I was building out this visual. I've always been fascinated by the map and charting functionality in Power BI, and I think this particular visual is a great addition to the maps that are available inside Power BI. So what I have here is a data set that I downloaded from the Pew Research Center, and it is it's data around unfunded pensions for each state. So the data at this level is at the state level. I'm going to dive down a little bit deeper into another data set that is at the zip code level and show you how you can modify that within the visual itself. So I'm going to start showing you the final product, and then we'll go back and redevelop this map plot visual. It's a typical way that I do the design of these videos in the format for the teaching usual way. So what I have here is each state color coded based on the funding rank that they have. So take, for example, the state of Illinois is ranked 48th in funding. State of Wisconsin is ranked 1st. So this blue, very sort of greenish bluish color is going to represent the lower rank, which is good in this case, and red will be a higher rank, which is bad for this data set. I can also click on an individual state, and I have some visuals over here that give you detail around that state itself. Another thing that I can do within this particular plot is to, if I uncheck a state, is to lasso it. So there's a lasso tool up here that I can click, and I basically just click once and then drag around the states that I want to select, and then click again and it will select those states for me. The funding rank here really doesn't tell me a whole heck of a lot. I'm using an average, which might not make sense for this data set, but the funding ratio here and the total liability probably make a little bit more sense. Then I can go back and just click on the map anywhere to uncheck it. Of course, I have the ability to do zoom out and zoom in. I'm only focusing on the United States, but we could plot data for countries throughout the world if we wanted to. I also have the ability to grab the map and move it around, and then with a right click we can rotate it at an angle here to get it around different axis on with my mouse. So I have that option as well. All right, so very basic functionality within the visual itself. I'm going to break it down and rebuild it, and I'll talk about some of the settings you have to have in place in order to get it to display correctly. So I'm just going to delete it. If you haven't added it, just click on the ellipsis, the 3 dots here, and then choose Import from Marketplace. And then within the Marketplace, if I go to the Map section or I just type Mapbox, it's this one here. Click Add to add it to your Visualizations tab. All right, let's go ahead and add it all over again, and I'm going to move it up to the corner and expand it here. And the very first time that I add an item to this plot, or even before that, it's going to ask me for a key. But let's go ahead and add an item in here, and you'll see what it looks like when I get asked how to display the data. So we'll do the state. And if I add the state, you'll notice that it gets this message. This is a service, so I have to go online and get the token for it, which I've already done. This wasn't a spam thing or anything like that. I didn't get a ton of spam after I filled this out, or even questions asking me to buy the service. So I already have the token over here, so I'm just going to copy it in. It is a huge token. It's, I think, longer than the American alphabet. Or English alphabet, it's more than 26 characters. So I'm going to go over to the Format tab and go to Viz Settings, and I'm just going to paste it in here. I'm not going to block it, my key, my access token, because that's less than half of the number. So you're not getting the whole token anyway. All right, so once that's in there, then you'll get some context around how you have to build these out. You can read them on your own. I'm going to go through and show you how I've used these before. And in this demo, I'm going to show you how I actually built this. So I'm not going to use the circle setting, so we're going to turn that off for now. If you do want to use the circle layer, you have to have latitude and longitude attributes in your data set to use the circle layer. So I'm going to turn that off, and we're going to turn on chloropleth here. So we'll turn chloropleth on. And then I have to go back and I can actually add the data at the state level, which is already done for me here. And then some sort of numeric value, and I'm going to choose the funding rank, which is what I did before. I'm going to make that be the color. All right. The other thing I'm going to do is go back over to the Format tab, and under Viz settings, I'm going to turn off the auto zoom functionality. The auto zoom was a little bit of a pain for me. Anytime I changed when I was demoing this for myself, a filter made changes, it zoomed back out instead of zoomed back in, which sort of seemed counterintuitive to what that setting was telling me it was doing. So I got rid of that. All right, so we have very basic visual setup here, the state and the funding rank. Now I'm going to go back in under chloropleth here, and I'm going to change the colors. So I'm going to make it this blue color for min value, the middle value will be yellow, and the max value will be this red color. So that's sort of how I had it set up before. All right, and now that that's in place, I can do exactly what I was doing by clicking on some of the states and the values here and having them selected. Now there's another thing we can do within the chloropleth, which is kind of interesting. There's a setting for levels here. So if I didn't want to do it by state, say that I had data that was broken up or was as granular as by postal codes, I could choose postal codes here and actually have a data set where that is available. So if I go over to this U.S. Healthcare's risk factor data, and you'll see I'm zoomed out here. Other thing I've noticed, if you navigate between tabs, it will reset the zoom. So that'll happen. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of that. I wish it would preserve it, but it doesn't. All right, and I've only selected Florida here. I do have all of the state data in here, but I've just chosen Florida. And this is by zip code. So my data set has rankings, and the rankings are based on the no exercise value. So a certain value that determines if a group in a geographic area exercises or not, and there's a risk factor associated with it. So I've dropped in that value, and under then the chloropleth portion here, I've color coded it like I did in the previous example, but this time I changed the data level to postcodes instead of US states, and that's what gives me the division here into different zip code areas. Well, what's really nice about this particular view, when getting very granular and you want to look at a specific areas, I found the lasso tool pretty helpful here. So I could come in and just get the areas that I want to look at within a certain geographic region. So maybe I want to do everything that's in here and select it. So that has worked out real well. Now, what I have noticed is that the visuals over on the right that I've created haven't been updating like they did on the US funded example, where if I select an individual state, it changes. And then if I use the lasso tool, it will change. But at that more granular level, it hasn't been preserving the changes in the drill down. So I don't know if that's by design or if there's something that's going on with the visual that's making it not update, but it doesn't do that piece. All right, back to the unfunded pensions for a moment. I just want to show you what the circle looks like if you were to do it in a non-chloropleth output. So if we turn the chloropleth off and then turn the circle on, we'll get the little warning about how we need to lay it out. And in this case, location state isn't going to work. I need the latitude and longitude, and I have that. Basically, I'm take the latitude and longitude is the center of every state. So I take that and I drop it onto my plot here. Just be warned that if you've told it to not turning off the summarization, that it will make it an average, depending on if you have more than one value per state. Maybe if you had it by zip code or something, it will use the average, and that might not result in a visual that makes any sense. So again, I'm going to zoom in a bit. It did reset or took different colors, so I'd have to change the colors again because this is under a different setting inside the Viz settings here, and then you have the ability to change a number of other visual features within that set here. Change the size of it if you want to. Make it be something a little bit different. So I have the colors. I could also do something where maybe I want the funded ratio to be the size. So it changes the size a little bit. I would probably want this to be the ones that are like Illinois' funded ratio is much larger, and it's showing up not as large as I want it to be, so maybe I would do a calculation to make it a little bit bigger. But that gives you some sense. Now instead of being able to click on the states, you have to click on the individual circles themselves to see what they look like here. Again, something I would use if I was maybe zooming into an individual area and maybe I was doing it by city. That might make a little bit more sense, but just for demo purposes, that's sort of the layout that it looks like. So big takeaways are, if you're going to use the circle layouts, it needs latitude and longitude. The choropleth can be down to a zip code level. It just needs to use the location piece within the visual setting itself. This is a pretty complicated and detailed visual, so this introduction to it certainly doesn't cover everything that's available within the visual, but it gives you a good start to where you can go and what you can build with it. As usual, leave comments, drop a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll be happy to put it out there. Thanks.